For as long as I can remember, I believed home was sacred. And for me, that place was a 2-story house at the edge of town, where the wind always smelled like blooming jasmine in the spring. My name is Nicole, and I used to think that if I was kind enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe I could earn love that didn't feel like a performance. Growing up, I was the daughter who followed the rules. I did the dishes without being asked. I stayed home when my sister went out partying. I got straight A's, not because anyone demanded it, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, that would make them proud. My mom used to say, "Nicole's our sensible one." My dad would just nod. They never really saw me, but I didn't know that back then. I was too busy trying to deserve their attention. That house, our house, was where I made breakfast every Sunday, where I decorated for birthdays they sometimes forgot were mine, where I sat in the living room alone, watching family movies while they went out for quick dinners that turned into late nights with my sister and her boyfriend. But I never complained. I convinced myself that love meant patience and loyalty was louder than words. I wanted so badly to be enough for them, even if I had to earn it every single day. So when my parents casually said, "This is your home too, always," I believed them. I believed them when they handed me keys and smiled. When they needed help with bills, and I quietly offered to cover some. When they said we're family, I trusted that meant me too. But what I didn't realize then was that love without effort is a fragile thing. And the cracks had been forming for years, subtle, quiet fractures in the way my name was an afterthought, the way my space was borrowed, not truly mine. I held onto that house like it was the anchor to our bond, until one day, without warning, the warmth faded. The words they spoke next would shatter everything I thought I knew about family. And that house, it didn't feel like home anymore. It was a Tuesday afternoon, quiet, ordinary, almost forgettable. I had just come home from work, balancing groceries in one hand and my phone in the other. I walked in like I always did, like it was still my place, still my home. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt different. My mom was sitting at the kitchen counter with her arms crossed, and my dad stood behind her, unreadable. My sister was nowhere in sight. There was no small talk, no smile, just silence thick enough to suffocate. Then my mom looked up and said it, just like that. "We don't need you anymore, Nicole." I froze, unsure if I heard her right. Her voice didn't crack. It didn't hesitate. It was sharp, flat, final. I blinked. What does that mean? My dad chimed in. "We think it's best if you find your own space. Give us all a little breathing room. Don't contact us for a while." The words hit like glass to the chest, quiet but devastating. No argument, no fight, just cold dismissal. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't even crying. I just stood there, clutching a bag of apples like they were the last thing tethering me to the moment before everything broke. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to remind them of the rent I'd paid when things were tight, the dinners I made, the nights I stayed in when my sister didn't. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded. Quietly, almost too quietly. And I said, "Okay." That was it. I turned around, walked out the same door I had walked into 1,000 times before. But this time, it didn't close behind me with warmth. It shut like a final chapter. No one followed. No one called after me. They just let me go like I had never belonged there to begin with. And as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I didn't let the tears fall. I respected their wishes. But something inside me shifted. Something permanent. Later that evening, I checked my phone. My notifications were filled with vacation photos, my parents smiling with my sister and her boyfriend on a beach, my mom in a sun hat, my dad holding up a drink, captions like, "Family time is the best time." Not a single mention of me. And still I didn't respond. I didn't lash out. I didn't beg. I simply stared at those photos, took a deep breath, and started thinking. Not about revenge, but about reclaiming what was mine. I didn't sleep that night. It wasn't just the words, "We don't need you." It was how easily they said them. How easily they let me walk away like I was a tenant whose lease had expired, not their daughter. Not the girl who stayed home on prom night to help my mom decorate the house for guests. Not the one who drove Dad to his appointments when no one else could be bothered. I lay on my tiny apartment couch, still in my jeans, phone clutched in my hand. That's when the notification came in. Mom just posted a photo. My stomach sank. I clicked it. There they were. My mother, glowing in a sun hat, drink in hand. My dad, lounging with sunglasses, grinning ear to ear. And front and center, my sister and her boyfriend, arms wrapped around each other like some perfect holiday postcard. Family time in the Keys, the caption read. So much love. I stared at that word, family, like I was never part of it, like I had been cropped out and replaced. The photos kept coming, beach walks, dinner toasts, boat rides. Every picture a reminder that I was no longer in the frame, that I was replaceable, optional. I felt like a deleted chapter in a story I helped write. I kept scrolling, even though each image carved deeper. My sister in my mom's old shawl, the one she promised to pass down to me. Her boyfriend sitting where I used to at family brunch, cracking jokes, being called the fun one. It wasn't even that they went. It was that they celebrated without me. So publicly, so happily. No mention of where I was. No trace of grief or hesitation. Just smiles. I don't think I'd ever felt so invisible, so erased. I curled into myself on that couch. I didn't cry, not yet. I just sat there, still cold, unraveling. And for the first time, I realized that love in my family had always been conditional. Be quiet. Be useful. Be easy. And maybe then, maybe, you'd earn a seat at the table. But I had changed. I had respected their wish for space. And now they'd shown me what they really valued. It wasn't me. Still, even in that pain, a strange clarity began to rise. Something cold and certain. Because what they didn't know was, the locks on that house, they were still mine. I didn't scream. I didn't call or text or send angry paragraphs. Instead, I sat up on that couch, opened my laptop, and got to work. See, what my parents forgot, or maybe never bothered to remember, was that the house they kicked me out of? It wasn't really their house anymore. My name had been on the deed since 2 years ago, when I'd refinanced the place after Dad's layoff. I'd paid every mortgage bill since then. Quietly, willingly, just happy to keep us afloat. But they'd never asked for the full story. They were just happy the lights stayed on. So when they told me, "We don't need you," they didn't realize they were standing on ground I legally owned. That night, I changed the locks. Not out of revenge, out of clarity. I called a locksmith I trusted, had him come by the next morning. We installed a keypad system. I updated the codes, set up remote access. Then I walked into the garage and stared at my dad's car. That silver Camry? The one he drove every day like it was his pride? The title had my name on it. It had been gifted to me by my uncle when he passed, but Dad had needed a car and I'd handed over the keys saying, "Just until you get back on your feet." He never did. I pulled out the paperwork from my folder, took a photo of the VIN, and contacted a local dealership. By sunset, the car was appraised and sold. The funds wired into my account. Clean and quiet. No posts. No rants. Just business. Next came the bank. I had co-signed for their credit card back when my mom had back surgery and they couldn't get approved a loan. My signature had opened that door, and now I was ready to shut it. I didn't cancel it outright. That would raise flags. I froze it, just like that. Transactions? Declined. Access? Denied. It felt calm. Not vindictive. Not dramatic. It felt like I was finally stepping into the truth. For years, I had played the good daughter role, always giving, never asking. They called it love, but it was dependence in disguise. The moment I wasn't useful, I became disposable. Now, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just done being hurt. Done being a background character in my own story. So I stood in the hallway of that house, my house, and looked around. The quiet felt different now. Not lonely. Not sad. It felt powerful. Because the next time they came home, the locks would be new. And the rules would be mine. The front porch light clicked on as the car pulled into the driveway, or what used to be their car. Now there was just an empty space where it once stood. Nicole watched from the upstairs window, arms folded tightly across her chest, silent and composed. Laughter floated out from the driveway. Her parents were back from their week-long vacation. Some kissed, relaxed, dragging matching luggage behind them, joking with each other like nothing had happened, like they hadn't told their daughter she wasn't needed, like they hadn't exiled her and replaced her with her sister and her boyfriend in one smiling Instagram post after another. Her father reached into his pocket and pulled out the house key. Click. Then again. Click. Twist. Nothing. A pause. He tried again, slower this time, jiggling the key, confusion wrinkling his brow. Did it jam? He muttered. Her mother stepped forward. Try mine. The same result. Locked out. They looked at each other, puzzled. Still not worried, not yet. Not until they looked around and finally noticed. The blinds were drawn. The car was gone. The porch flower pots Nicole had planted were missing. The doormat was new. Cold realization began to seep into their sun-warmed skin. This isn't right, her mom whispered. They knocked. First politely, then harder. Nicole! Her mom called through the door, voice rising, wrapping it in forced sweetness. Honey, open up. Let's not be dramatic. No response. Her dad reached for his phone, dialed, and froze mid-call. Declined. He stared at the screen. Tried again. Call failed, it read. They exchanged a look. Her mom pulled out her card from her purse and walked to the corner coffee shop. She returned less than 5 minutes later, face pale, holding the receipt with declined printed in bold. Panic now. I don't understand, she stammered. I do, her dad said, low and angry. She's punishing us. Nicole opened the upstairs window, just an inch. I'm not punishing anyone, she said, her voice calm, almost too calm. Just respecting the boundary you set. Her mom looked up, shocked. We said we didn't need you in that moment, her dad snapped. And I listened, Nicole said, eyes steady. Now, please respect my wishes. He banged the door. This is our house. Nicole tilted her head, slightly. Check the deed. He faltered. She didn't slam the window. She closed it quietly. The porch light clicked off. They stood there in the dark, vacation smiles long gone, replaced by something they hadn't felt in years. Powerlessness. Nicole didn't feel joy. This wasn't revenge. It was a line in the sand. They crossed it first. She just decided not to pretend anymore. The silence in the house grew louder as Nicole leaned back against the window, watching her parents struggle at the door. She felt the weight of their absence, not just from the house, but from her life. Their presence had always been a looming shadow, casting doubt on her self-worth, making her question if she was ever enough. But tonight, the weight was different. This time, it wasn't just about her. It was about them, their choices, their blind spots, their relentless favoritism. She closed her eyes, the memories flooding back like a tidal wave. Growing up, it was always clear that her sister, Emma, was the golden child, the firstborn, the one who could do no wrong. Their house had always felt like Emma's stage, and Nicole was merely a shadow in the wings. Every parent-teacher conference, every family gathering, it was Emma who got the praise. Emma's grades were perfect. Emma's personality was magnetic. Emma was always fun, always outgoing, always the center of attention. And Nicole? She was the quiet one, the boring one, the overthinker. Whenever Nicole did something right, there was always an unspoken, but, "You could be more like Emma, you know," her dad would say after she aced a test, his voice laced with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Or her mom, after a family dinner, would casually mention how much easier Emma was to deal with, how much more charming she was. The moments had been so small, barely noticeable at first, but they accumulated. They became the background noise of Nicole's life. Overlooked, underappreciated, always compared to someone who felt like the perfect version of what her parents wanted. And then came the vacations, Emma's perfect boyfriends, Emma's flawless trips, Emma's sparkling life. Nicole was just the observer, the one who tagged along as the afterthought. Every picture posted on social media, every family moment seemed to have Emma as the star, with Nicole lingering somewhere on the edge. This latest betrayal wasn't something new. It was just louder. It had cut deeper, because this time it wasn't just about being second best in her parents' eyes. It was about being invisible. It was about being replaced. I wasn't enough, she whispered to herself. She had tried so hard to earn their approval, to fit into the mold they had set. But in the end, it wasn't enough. And now, as she stood on the other side of the door, locked out of their world, she realized something. She wasn't just second best. She was done trying to fit their expectations. Nicole stared at the door, her hand resting on the new lock she had installed earlier. It wasn't petty what she was doing. It wasn't some act of revenge to make her parents suffer. It was a way to finally, after years of trying to be the good daughter, take back the power they had stripped from her. She wasn't asking for their love anymore. She was honoring herself. Her fingers brushed over the car keys she had sold a few days ago, feeling the cold metal, like a symbol of everything she'd given up for their approval. Her car, her name, her worth. She had let them dictate her entire life up to this point. No more. The first thing she did after they kicked her out? She contacted the landlord, making sure the house was legally transferred to her name. It wasn't just the locks she changed. She had carefully, strategically taken back what was always hers. The house was in her name now, her parents none the wiser. As for the car, she'd sold it quietly, moving the money into her own account. They didn't deserve it. She didn't need the financial burden or the memories tied to it anymore. She didn't just want to protect herself from them. She wanted to be independent, truly independent for the first time in her life. But more than that, she wanted to make sure they understood one thing. She wasn't a backup. She wasn't a placeholder. She wasn't someone to be discarded when they felt like it. So, when they left for their vacation, basking in their joy, thinking everything was fine, Nicole took control. She made those legal calls, filed the paperwork, and had every detail squared away, quietly and efficiently. It felt strange, the way it seemed so simple after years of being emotionally bogged down by them, as if taking action was the only thing that had ever truly made sense. There was no fight, no yelling, no begging them to see her as more than a second option. Instead, she had built something for herself, and that felt powerful. She didn't need them to validate her decisions. She didn't need to argue or prove her worth anymore. That was the moment everything changed, the moment she realized she didn't just survive them. She could outlive them. She could thrive without them. No more pretending. No more begging for crumbs of affection. No more sacrificing her happiness for their approval. She wasn't a child who needed permission. She wasn't the outcast or the invisible daughter anymore. She was free. Standing there in her house, Nicole felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. Real peace. The kind you can only get when you stop looking over your shoulder for approval and start living your life on your terms. When her parents came back, they'd be met with a harsh reality, not just a locked door, not just a list of legal documents, but a daughter who had finally said enough. It wasn't about getting back at them. It was about finally living life without constantly measuring her worth against their expectations. For once, she wasn't chasing after love that was given conditionally. She was giving herself what they couldn't. The calls started coming in the moment they realized what was happening. It was a flurry of missed calls, frantic text messages, and voicemail after voicemail. At first, Nicole didn't even bother to check them. She knew what they'd say. She already knew what they would feel. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her mother. "Where are you? What have you done? We're stuck outside. We need your help." But Nicole didn't rush to respond. She didn't feel the urgency they had. She didn't feel the obligation to soothe their panic. Instead, she sat back on the couch, her hands resting in her lap, calm and composed. A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips. She hadn't felt this much control in years. They never thought this day would come, did they? The daughter they dismissed, the one they casually kicked to the curb, the one they replaced so easily, she was the one who held the keys now. The phone buzzed again, this time with a text from her father. "We need to talk. You can't just do this to your family. We need a resolution." She could hear the tone in his message, the frustration, the pleading. The man who had told her she was worthless all those years ago, the one who had barely glanced at her when she needed him, was now begging. Begging for the very thing they had denied her for so long: attention, respect, a place at the table. She read the message, feeling a tightness in her chest, but it wasn't anger that filled her. It wasn't the rage she had anticipated feeling. Instead, there was only quiet satisfaction, a sense of peace, because for once, she wasn't the one chasing their love. She decided to call back. When her mother picked up, her voice was frantic, panic-lacing every word. "Nicole, why are you doing this? Please just let us in. We don't know what happened. We don't know where our things are. You need to fix this. Nicole let the silence sit for a moment, listening to the words, feeling the weight of the desperation in her mother's voice. She hadn't heard that tone in so long, not since she was a little girl, asking for validation, begging for attention. But now, she wasn't the one begging anymore. Got it, she said, her voice steady and unhurried. No anger, no bitterness, just calm finality. Her mother's voice trembled. What do you mean, got it? We need to fix this. We need you to fix this. I've already fixed everything, Nicole replied, her tone soft but firm. I've given myself what I deserve. And now it's time you did the same. She hung up before they could respond, her heart strangely light. She wasn't angry anymore. She was done. They had made their choices, and now she had made hers. Later, the phone kept ringing, but Nicole didn't pick up. She didn't need to listen to their excuses anymore. Their panic was their problem, not hers. As the days passed, they tried reaching out, calling her every name in the book, blaming her for ruining the family. But none of it mattered. They had kicked her out, treated her like an afterthought. But now, the girl they thought they could discard became the one thing they never saw coming. Their source of control, their source of comfort, the one they never thought would stand up for herself, had finally become the one who held all the power. And in that power, she found freedom.